please.
Welcome back to another episode of The Mind of Symary. I'm so excited for today's conversation because I have the pleasure of speaking with author Nick Savage. Nick is a talented storyteller whose work explores, well, from my gathering, some interesting dark fairy tales as the latest. And I've seen other kind of like horror themes and thrillers from him, so I'm pretty interested in hearing what he's got to say. Today, we're going to dive into his journey as a writer, his creative process, and what he's working on next. So, Nick, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what first inspired you to start writing?
Yes, well, I originally hail from the Chicagoland area where I uh, spent my childhood, clearly, as that's where you originally hail from. Um, and I don't know, I was going to go for some like weird like voice thing. No, I grew up in Chicagoland and had a fairly normal childhood. I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I think it wasn't quite normal, but to me it was normal. It's all I had. Um, and got started with music when I was like 10. So I've been playing guitar for like 35 years. And I'm not as good as 35 years should make you. Um, but I got started doing like bands and stuff like that. Then I got into screenplays come late high school and early college. And then I was kind of trying to make my way into those for a number of years, but it wasn't a good format. And that's something we can get into later. But writing screenplays and writing novels are two very different monsters.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had moved down to Orlando in 2016 that I decided to get back into writing. I had been doing special effects makeup for like 18 years. Moved down to Orlando, decided to get back into writing, and kind of a writing exercise turned into the Fairlane series. And then while I was writing that, the other stuff came into being. But that's kind of my life. Happily married to my wonderful wife, Chris, who is an audiobook narrator and editor, mainly an editor, narrator second. And she encourages me all the way, and I love her very much. And we have two Maine Coons. That's me in a nutshell.
That is so cool. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I love to hear that. Like the perfect, partnership between two creatives that support each other like that and get to have an awesome life. That's, I think, the dream for many of us. So that is awesome to hear. Do you remember the first story you ever wrote and how that experience shaped your passion for storytelling?
The first story I can remember writing was this really shitty short story in a high school creative writing class that I took. Um, there was this teacher, Miss Madden, and she was wonderful. She was wonderful, and she was great. She was a redhead, had a crush on her. She was wonderful. And I wrote this really bad story, but I can't even remember what it was about. I remember that the name of the character was a really bad bastardization of like a Star Wars character name, and then it was about him getting stuck in a cave. I mean, it was just bad. It was bad. There was nothing redeeming about the story, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. And at that point, I had been writing songs and stuff like that, so I don't think I took the story all that seriously. But it was more the encouragement that that teacher placed on me and other students who showed interest and potential that really shaped who I became than a crappy story ever did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. So, how would you describe your writing style and what genres or themes do you feel most drawn to?
That's a horrible question for me. I love it. No, the genres. Okay, writing styles. Let's start with genres. I don't get drawn to any one genre, and I don't. There's a reason I write, and it's because I'm not good at speaking. So I'm going to say something that's going to come out wrong, and then I'm going to try and make it sound right. I find writers who only write in one genre pigeonhole themselves to writing stories that are forced to fit within the genre instead of writing a story in the genre that's most appropriate for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they have to
Yes, and it's nothing against the writers. Some writers can make a story fit in any genre, and that's great. But if I'm going to rewrite the movie Running Man, and I'm a steamy male-on-male romance author, and I'm not, that's not going to be the Running Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't fit an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, and I know I was doing movie and not the Stephen King short story, but you're not going to take that movie adaptation, rewrite it as a male-on-male romance, you know what I'm saying, like pool boy porn smut book, and have it come across proper. It might work for the sense of being smut and something fun to read, but the story itself is going to get lost. It's just not going to translate. So if I come up with a story, I will write it in that genre. The genres I tend to write in, to come back to that, are romance, and I hate to call it romance because there's nothing romantic about it. And it's not dark romance. It's not like dark. There's no like forced stuff. It's not trailer park, 50 Shades of Grey or anything like that. It's just shitty people trying to do the right thing. And every time they try to do the right thing, it's still shitty things being done. But it's kind of a hopeless romantic through a very cynical and jaded point of view is kind of how I tend to write some of my romance. And then I have sci-fi with fantasy elements that may have a relationship subplot story somewhere in there, but it's not the driving force of the book or of the story, whatever. But my writing style, to answer your question 8.5 hours ago, I don't try and sound like any author in particular. There are every author who is on social media has seen the memes about releasing a breath they didn't know they were holding, or some other line that has become so ungodly cliched within a matter of a week and a half. I will not use it. I will not use that line. If I find myself in the need to use something akin to that, I will try and veer away from that as much as I can, because I am not going to put something in a story just to be like, oh, I know that line and someone's gonna like it. I don't write for that. I don't try and sound like Jodi Picoult or Stephen King or Robert Pattinson or anyone like that. I have been compared to Raymond Chandler and Truman Capote and Hunter S. Thompson, which are very
good names.
They're very different novelists. Yeah. One being far more noir, dime store novels. Hunter S. Thompson. I don't do drugs. I know I seem like it. Like growing up, I had sinus problems, and can I go on a tangent for a second?
Please.
Okay, I didn't know how strict of a timeline we're on. Growing up, I had sinus problems, so I was always doing like the, that snort thing.
Yeah.
So when I was like 19, 20, 21, going out to bars, no, the legal age was not 19. I was just there. And it's somewhere the bars are torn down now. But when I was younger, going out to bars, and I had sinus issues, and of course being around smoke, because you could smoke in the buildings back then, my sinuses were acting up, and I wanted to be cool, so I was smoking too. Horrible as an asthmatic, don't smoke. I was constantly like doing that, and my friends would ask me for cocaine. And I'm like, I don't do coke. And they're like, they'd get mad at me. They'd be like, you're such an, don't be a dick, just give me some. And I'm like, I don't do it. And as I'm sitting there like, like snorting, and I'm just like, it's sinuses. But like, I don't do drugs. So to be compared to Hunter S. Thompson is kind of cool in its own right. but it's kind of weird because
You don't
I
feel
don't.
it fits.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess in a sense it does, which is kind of cool. Um, and people, I I've had a few people who look at my sentence structure and ask me how much Virginia Woolf I read,
Well,
and and I do love Virginia Woolf. I think she was an absolutely wonderful author for her time, and I love her sentence structure. I just happen to write like that. I don't write like that to be like I want to tell like Virginia Woolf. I think every author should strive to sound like themselves
yeah.
without trying too hard. Like you'll get those authors who are all verbose and just overly flowery, and they use like antiquated and archaic just like words just because that's me and that's who I talk like, that's how I talk. And I'm like, no, you're forcing yourself to use words that no one's ever heard of because you want to be special. Just be yourself. And if you happen to catch a new word, like my wife watches a lot of BBC, the British show, not the porn.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of audience you have in that sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? So she'll say stuff like buggy sometimes, and I'm like, babe, we're not British. But she watches enough of it that's kind of worked her way into
It's
her
kind of
works
became
its way
part of her
into her
vernacular.
lexicon. Yeah, so I think that's kind of funny. But my writing style it's also a bit of stream of consciousness as well,
Yeah.
especially if the books are, and I know some people hate these first person present tense. I love first person present tense. As a writer, as a reader, I love it. I think it's great. Some people absolutely hate it. They're like, oh, it's first person present tense, won't even read it. I'm like, that's fine. If that's not your cup of tea, that's fine. Move on. I'm not your guy on that series. I have another series they can read. But for me, using that allows me to explore a little more. I think books have become very written movies in that sense of, instead of exploring the abstract of what's going on in their mind and the universe of the book, they're like, oh, and now he's sitting at a table and he's using a fork in his right hand and he's picking up the shrimp and he's eating the shrimp, and oh, the shrimp is rotten, so he feels the thing in his mouth. Like, what's going on in his mind about the person across the table? Like, that's what I want to know. You know what I'm saying? Like the internal thought process and stuff like that. So being the first person present tense kind of allows me to explore that. But I do write everything present tense because to me, reading past tense is like, well, it's already happened. Like I want to be in the action. And to me, I feel a little more in the action if it's present tense. But I could just be pretentious. I don't know.
So let's talk about your latest book. Can you share your idea from idea to manuscript?
Um, uh, okay, so I'm going to give you three options because I have a book. My latest book is going to be, the last one released was A Vampire Named Allison, which has been out for about 6 months, I want to say. The next one coming out is November 21st, which is the final one in that series. It's the fifth and final book in that storyline, not in that world, but in that story. But my latest book is actually the one I just did my final edits on after getting back from my editor and sending it back in before they like go back through for the final proofread. Yeah. And that's a standalone book. So do you want book 4 or 5 or the standalone?
I think that I was going to ask you about the Grey Fairy Anomaly.
Grey Fairy Anomaly. And what was the question?
Can you share the journey from idea to manuscript?
Oh, holy crap. Yeah. Okay, so the Grey Fairy Anomaly is the 5th book in the West Haven Undead series. The West Haven Undead series started many, many moons ago. I am 45. The idea for this series started in my 20s. So, I mean, it's going back. My best friend, Nick, has been on this journey with me because this journey with the books, and I'm going to get to your question, I promise.
It's okay.
We got a day, right? He's been with me on this since the beginning, and it started as a movie script. And it was one of the last movie scripts I wrote before I realized I can't write movie scripts, at least back then. And then I had gotten a small group of people together who liked the idea of it, and we were working on it, and blah, blah, blah. And then we were like, oh, after we make the movie, we're going to spin it off into a television series. And I was like, this is wonderful. This is great. And then it became a television series, and then two of them got married, and kind of life happened, and everything just stopped. But me and Nick were always like, well, we need to do something. So then we started writing like pilots and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if we sell this, the story will change. The universe will change. Because someone's going to buy it and make it their own and blah, blah, blah. And it will have nothing to do like you ever wrote. He's like, if you want the story to be yours, you have to write it. So I said, fine, I'm going to write it. So I started writing the books. And this is like 2017. We had 7 seasons of material planned out. And I was like, well, 1 book a season. And then as I'm writing the books, I realized seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 would be really tiny books compared to 1 and 2. And they're not huge books. They're like 90,000 words. So like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is 92,000 words. My romance novels are 50,000 words, which is like the Great Gatsby length. And I have those references because those are books many, many people have read.
Yeah.
Or at least seen on the shelf. And so I had gotten down to knowing where the journey began and where it ended. Or at least where one of 3 possible endings. I always write 3 endings. Now, book 5 is the final book, and I can't give spoilers. But I also don't believe in plot armor, so a lot of people die in my series. It starts out with a very big ensemble cast, and it gets whittled down.
Yeah.
And I like that because if your favorite characters always live through a story, there's no tension. There's no suspense that something bad may happen to them. I don't believe in happily ever afters or every book being happy all the time type stuff, or here's the tension that you know is going to get resolved, you know, whatever. You know, like people, bad things happen. I try to be very realistic, yet very entertaining in my writing.
Yeah.
So this book, getting to the question, this book had to wrap up 4 previous books of stuff that had been left open. Every book kind of ended on a cliffhanger. If you're a quick reader and you're a skimmer, you'll miss things. My books are not the let's skim them on a beach while looking at like hot people walk by. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with those books. People need books. I like those books. I can't write that. These are the books you have to read sentence for sentence, word for word, otherwise you'll miss something.
Okay.
And so this was wrapping things up while still having its own storyline. And I loved it because I'm a big plotter. I don't pants things. But even when you're plotting, you realize holes happen. So it was, I know where I had to start and I know where I need to approximately end up. And I kind of knew the route, you know, you're taking to get there, but sometimes you're driving and your GPS, whether it's Google Maps or Garmin's or Waze or whatever, is like, oh, road closed ahead, take a detour. There's always a lot of detours when you're plotting out a book.
Yeah.
You think you're going to go A to B to C, and you go A to D, and then you have to come back, and you know what I mean? It becomes a giant kind of squiggly line, but you eventually get to the end. And it was hard because I had been working on this series for so long that having it end was bittersweet in that it was nice to finally get that story done. I was like, oh, thank God it's done. It's out there.
So what part would you say brought you the most joy writing this book? And then you mentioned characters being whittled down. So my next part of that question would be, do you have a favorite character that stands out to you and why?
I do. 2, actually. What was the first part of the question? I swear I pay attention. I have ADD.
What brought you the most joy writing this, and then your favorite characters?
Okay, the most joy writing this book was actually a death scene because I kind of in writing the books, and the best way to describe my books are and I'm getting to a point with this, John Hughes movies, that kind of observational, like we're all, like friends or enemies or whatever, but it's very observational of everyday life. But then the death scenes are very gruesome, like very vividly, almost like not gore porn, because there's nothing gratuitous about it, but that very detailed, like up close effects of throats being ripped out and stuff like that. Okay. And that's how they were throughout the entire book. Without giving away details, one of the people who's a big character gets killed, and I do not give that character the satisfaction of having a big drawn out death scene. And I did that because that character didn't deserve it. So I kind of take away from that climax of what the reader might come to expect. And I'm just like, yeah, no, it ain't going to happen. But my two favorite characters are, or two characters that stand out the most, are actually Allison Petrovsky, who book 4 in the series is called A Vampire Named Allison. Throughout the series, she's probably one of the most interesting, most complicated, and most troubled characters. She's the girl who looks too young for her age, too tiny for her age. She wants to be something different than she is. Ends up dating the guy she likes, but then realizes she likes girls. And these books start taking place in 2017. So people are much more accepting of it as they were in 2017, not quite as much as they are now. Not that everyone's accepting of it now. And so she has a hard time believing other people are okay with it because she's not okay with it. And that's because the person she first finds herself attracted to is her enemy. And so she's like,
enemies to lovers thing.
And no, it's not. More like friends to enemies to friends again, because the person she finds herself attracted to is not at all bi or gay.
They're not reciprocative, yeah.
Yeah, but she's cool with it because it's like, who the hell cares, and that's my thing is like,
yeah,
I don't care, and that's not a bad thing. It's like the best. I was like 8 billion people on this planet scrolling through Facebook mindlessly one day, and I read a tweet that said, if my kid is gay, I don't want them to tell me. I just want them to come home and introduce me to their boyfriend like they would introduce me to their girlfriend, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by I don't care. If it's two consenting adults,
it's just meeting your child's partner.
Yes, and that's all it is. If two people are adults of consenting age and they are not hurting each other in a way that is not consented upon, because I'm not trying to exclude the whole BDSM community. If you know what I'm saying, like if it's consenting and they're adults, I don't care. And people should be like that. People should be like that. They should be like, cool, you're consenting, you're adults, have fun with what you're doing, because at the end of the day, they don't care that I'm a straight white male. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because that's default.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the default needs to not be straight white male. It just needs to be that. So Allison's character, and by that, I mean, it just needs to be what it is. Like when somebody asked David Bowie, are you bi? Are you gay? He goes, I am what I am. And that's what default should be, is we are what we are, as long as within two consenting adults. But Allison's character is so wonderfully broken that she's a blast to read. And then there's Duncan. And Duncan it's a giant group of legends of these people who have these diseases that transform them into these monsters. And then there's Duncan, who is the leather jacket, bald-headed kid who's got the bad home life and smoked cigarettes in high school and falls in love or has a thing for the popular blonde girl. And they end up meeting, and they end up like kind of like hitting it off, like despite their opposites attract kind of thing. And he finds out that when she turns, she's basically what is in the series is called Undying, but like when she turns into her like legendary form, her jaw falls off, her skin starts sagging, like she just gets ugly. But he loves her anyways, even though she doesn't love herself. And so he becomes this outside force that says, despite the way you think the world will respond to you guys, I'm here and I'm here for you. And so he becomes kind of the beacon of hope in this world, even though he himself isn't of any standing to be like, oh, yes, I have all the resources I need. He's just a guy, a kid, you know what I'm saying, who's kind of a rebel and in trouble with the law anyways, but he's their beacon of hope. And those are my two favorite characters.
So every book has a deeper current running through it. What themes or messages do you hope that readers will take away from this one?
I'm going to quote a movie on this. Never give up, never surrender. And if you don't know that movie, it's Galaxy Quest. This book alone, the broader themes of life is never give up on yourself. Never stop. Yeah. Never stop trying to find a way to better yourself, to be who you can be and fit into the world in a way that adds value to not only your life, but to those around you. Because even though some people can't see it now, they have that value. And there is a way to add value to the world without needing to take away value from something else. Value is not a pie that has so much, space to a rising tide raises all ships. Yeah. So to mix metaphors, be part of that tide that raises the ships instead of a wave that sinks some. And that's really the underlying current of this book, because it's Scarlett's book and she finds herself, as I don't mention that character at all in the others talking. It's her book, and she finds, her place finally after 5 books of everyone else, or 4 books of everyone else finally kind of finding out their place. She's finally getting her, chance to shine, and don't give up on yourself just because you haven't found out, what you can do yet, or you don't feel like you belong. There's a spot for everyone to be.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question. For all the aspiring listening, excuse me, let me try this again. For all the aspiring authors who are listening today, what advice would you leave with them as they embark on their own writing journey? We got about 2 minutes here, so that's going to be my final question there.
Don't do it. Run far. Get a job with a 401k. Write your book. Make sure it's a story worth telling. Write it, put it away, and move on to your next one. Because the second one will be better. We'll have someone to look at it, and then after you get feedback on that second book, then go back to your first. Take a look at it with fresh eyes, and then send it off. Your first book, no matter how much you like it, it's going to suck on some level without feedback and criticism, and that is okay. Yeah. You learn from feedback. People are not out to give you feedback to tear you down, but to help make you better, and that's what people need to remember.
Yeah. Well, Nick, it's been a real pleasure having you on the Mind of Symri today. Thank you for sharing your story and your creative process and all of these great insights with us. For everyone listening, make sure that you check out Nick's work, and I'm positive you won't want to miss it. It sounds like, especially if you're any of my horror fan listeners, this might be up your alley. It kind of has, from what you said to me, it kind of has like a Walking Dead appeal.
It has many different things going on with it, and yes, I think some fans of The Walking Dead may like it for various reasons. Yes.
Awesome. Well, until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and remember the mind is the most powerful story we'll ever tell. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.